Hi, my name is Miles, and welcome to A Second Look, a video series for DMs of experienced players to give them a new way to present encounters, characters, in situations for their campaigns that experienced players have never encountered before. A new experience for them, a new way to present things. Today, we are going to talk about Thieves Guilds. We're all familiar with the trope of the regular Thieves Guild. It's going to be shadowy figures in dark cloaks and hoods with poison daggers, slipping in and out of the shadows. They're going to meet in their guilds in these candlelit, terrible, shadowy places, speaking about evil plans of the avarice of a dragon. An ancient dragon couldn't compare to what they were doing. These long-term plans to rob everything and everyone. No exposed gold coin would be safe from a Thieves Guild. For some reason, there would always be a hapless halfling around if there's going to be some pickpocketing to be done. None of it would make sense, of course. There's going to be a gymnasium of mannequins to pickpocket and slippery walls to climb and locks to pick. It's going to be like a thieves adult internet college. That, of course, is not what we're going to be concentrating on today. The average Thieves Guild that we would know of in today's society has a very different picture. Thieves Guilds today would be things we would think of like a New Jersey mob organization, Japanese triads, the Bloods and Crips, biker gangs, that sort of thing. These are actually all Thieves Guilds, and very different than the perspective of Thieves Guilds that we have when we're playing Dungeons and Dragons or these role-playing games. One of the big differences, of course, is they're not these shadowy figures who are trying to remain mysterious and blend in with everyone else in the background. These Thieves Guilds are actually filled with fighters. Again, you think of these mob enforcers, the Bloods and the Crips and bikers. These aren't small people who are avoiding confrontation. These tend to be big, burly, dangerous men who are very willing to take your life and who are scary people around town. Young toughs in terms of some of these smaller or in terms of some of these youth gangs. That said, the Thieves Guild that we're going to be dealing with would be the Black Daggers organization. They would operate in a small to mid-sized town, and they would be the sort of Thieves Guild that we're talking about today. They would number about 40 to 50 people, and with the exception of very few, would be fighters. First, second, possibly third level fighters. They will really not wear armor. Perhaps a couple would have leather or some small pieces of armor, but they would attempt to dress either in a fashion of tough, intimidating people or people with money. They would be dressed in as males with a lot of finances available to them. They would have smaller weapons, no double-headed battle axes or maces or that sort of thing. No two-handed swords. More like short swords, clubs, daggers, that sort of thing. Something that is easily concealed, nothing too in the way, something they're going to be able to use indoors or in crowded situations. They are going to be city thieves, as was talked about before. There's a city organization. They're not adventurers wandering around in big open spaces. To encounter these thieves or at least the members of this Thieves Guild in a normal situation, they'll be always be in groups of 3 or 4. That way, they're never alone. They can never really be waylaid and one of them snatched. If they need help, someone can go get help. Or if an opportunity presents itself to make some sort of move or situation, they're able to do so then and there. For every 10 members of the Thieves Guild, at least the low-level enforcers, there will be one lieutenant. He'd be a level or 2 above the other thieves who are running around, a little more experienced, a little more in charge. On top of them would be basically the captain of the guard, the highest of the enforcers. In this case, it's going to be a character we'll call Pretty Tim. He would be a half orc who would actually appear as a very handsome human male. Long blonde hair he'd keep in a ponytail, who would have very few markings or earmarks that you would actually identify him as a half-orc. Perhaps a light greenish tinge around some of his joints, like his elbows or his knees. A few small splatters of scales here and there. But other than that, a handsome human. He would actually be quite psychotic. He would be known to go off where anyone to make some sort of comment about his race or his heritage. He understands that he is as high as he is ever going to go in the Thieves Guild, as they would not allow a half-orc to become one of the leaders of the organization. And he's fine with that. He knows who he is and what he is, and is quite happy with the level of power and prestige that he has attained, not only in the guild but in the city. He would be a known name, and people would really go out of their way to make sure that he is taken care of, and that he is not offended in any manner, really at the cost of their lives. Above him would be, I guess, the only three actual thieves we would think of in this Thieve Guild. There would be three individuals who, if there was a pocket that needed to be picked, a wall that needed to be climbed, perhaps some intel that needed to be gathered, any sort of spy type of stuff, it would fall into the purview of these three individuals. They'd be the common sort of thieves that we would think about. They would really remain apart from the actual average enforcers who we would see around town. They would not be assigned to simply running around and doing random crimes or that sort of thing. The actual leadership of the Thieves Guild, there would only be 4 or 5. The person that they would come into contact with most would be a regular-looking, almost businessman or ambassador, sort of diplomat, administrative official-looking sort. He would probably be the only person who actually had the ability to operate in society without intimidating everyone or falling into some sort of rage, threatening to cut people's heads off or slit some throats or kill people's families anytime they needed something to be done. He would be the person that would almost be like a consigliere that they had in The Godfather. The face of the organization. If the organization needed to meet with a government official or businesses or someone to make any sort of dealings outside of the actual criminal organizations, he would be the person that they would send. Not saying he's not dangerous, not saying that he's really not that he's something you would want to mess with, but he could actually comport himself in a way that would not be terrifying anyone who wasn't an actual criminal themselves. On top of him would simply be the upper echelons, two or three members who had the strength, the ruthlessness, and the aggression and power to put this sort of organization together. Some toughs, some intelligent people, some cunning people who would all perhaps like each other, perhaps not, on top of who would be the layer between the consigliere and the person on top who really was the main power of this Thieves Guild. This person, his word is law. He makes dictates. Everyone else follows these dictates, but he simply lives off the avails of this organization. Everyone runs it for his wealth. It is his wealth, his organization. Please come back for part 2 of a Thieves Guild, and we would figure out how the Thieves Guild will operate, why they would operate, and what they do that actually makes them a Thieves Guild. Thank you for watching.